For anyone that's looking to sell their business, there's so many questions that you need answers to. It's probably the first time you've ever done this. Rob Goddard tells us which brokers you should avoid. So if that sounds like something you'd like to listen to, check out this video with Rob Goddard.
Do you know, Mike, 80% of businesses in the UK don't sell. And I mean, that's a shocking statistic, because in any industry, if Ford motor cars, 80% of Ford motor cars failed, there'd be uproar in the mainstream media. But that's what it's like in mergers and acquisitions, an industry I've been in for the last 20 years.
It's an interesting thing, and we've spoke about this before previously, obviously not on video, where it feels to me that often when someone's trying to sell their business, there's plenty of people that say they can make that happen, and yes, you can do that. And lots of people will be asking for your money to help you achieve that goal, rather than being realistic and setting some sort of genuine expectations on a few different things. So is it more, well, with that stat, it sounds like it's more common than even I imagined.
It is. I mean, there's good guys and there's bad guys. And the problem for the potential customer, the person looking to sell their business, is knowing who the good guys are and who the bad guys aren't. And because most business owners have never sold a business before, this is a unique experience for them. And they don't know what they don't know. And certainly in this country, the norm is to charge a retainer, upfront fees, and then a percentage if the deal completes. But for some advisory firms, that's a temptation, just to take on retained work, when really they haven't got a hope in hell of selling the business, because they've overquoted by double or treble what the business is probably worth in the marketplace.
But it's a great way to win business. It's to say if you were selling your house and there was an estate agent that came in and said your house is actually worth £750,000 rather than 600, and then you had two other agents in there telling you it's worth 600,000, who are you going to go and put your house up for sale with? So I can understand from their point of view why they do that, but you are then shooting yourself in the foot, because you're going to have a huge catalogue of businesses that are on your books for year after year after year. So I can't imagine you have many happy customers that got the outcome they were promised.
No, and the 20 years I've been doing this, I've regularly, not a week goes by without having a phone call from someone that's failed to sell their business through a third party. So I know who many of the bad guys are, and because their names keep coming up.
But they often shout the loudest, Rob. So, they're usually the best at marketing, So how could you spot a bad guy? Like, what would sort of be your 3 red flags? Let's just say, so if I am selling my business, this guy, he's all over YouTube, he's got loads of ads, I see him on Facebook ads, he seems like a guy that knows what he's talking about. So what would be the red flags?
So a few angled questions. One would be to go to more than one provider of those services and see what they come up with. So if you go to 3 or 4 advisors, brokers, you should get some sort of parity in valuation. But if there's one of the bad guys, if you're speaking with one of the bad guys, you'll see there'll be an outlier. The question to ask them is, would you stand behind that figure? So if we didn't sell at that price, would you give me my money back?
Oh, well, I imagine most would say no to that.
The saying is, a fool and their money are soon parted. And I think it's beholden on the seller to actually interview a few providers and put up a beauty parade.
It's interesting that you said, obviously, most people have never done this before, because, you work 10, 15, 20 years with your own business with the end goal that you want to sell, or sometimes you have to sell due to circumstances. So you kind of just think what the person in front of you is telling you is 100% truthful. Why would they be telling you differently, especially if they've done this numerous times, or you'd believe they've done it numerous times based on their marketing and some of the testimonials that they've got? I spoke to someone recently, actually, who sold a business a couple of years ago, and he said, I just asked for things if they were possible, which I thought was a good piece of advice, that if you don't ask, you don't get. But he said if they could sell it by a particular date, they could have a bigger percentage of the sale value. So he sort of negotiated little terms like that, which I thought was quite interesting, because I'd never thought of that myself.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the retainer that you've paid can be taken off of the success fee percentage at the end. There's all sorts of ways of fashioning a deal. It's just accepting from one source that what they say is gospel, and it may or may not be. So that's why it should go to a number of people. I tend to spend much of my time, now I've sold most of my business, or my core business, I've got more time in my diary. I know that resonates with you, Mike.
Yeah.
And I do mystery shops for business owners that are looking to sell. So I ring up, I join a call, a Zoom call, and I'm an advisor, and I'm advising the potential seller. So I'm sitting in on that call, so I can hear it from the horse's mouth as to what's being said to the person looking to sell their business. And I can, with 20 years experience and having 300 plus successful transactions under my belt, I can smell when something's not right.
What's some of the worst things you've heard on these calls listening in?
Oh, it usually revolves around double-digit multiples of profit. You know, someone's been told, they'll get 30 times profit. And it's a small sub 1 million turnover business making 10% on the bottom line. It's not BP. It's not Tesla. It's not. They haven't invented a cure for cancer in the pharmaceutical industry. These are small, honest businesses that aren't going to go for 30 times multiple, but they don't necessarily know that. Yeah, that's the highest one so far that I've come across. The other way there's a bit of smoke and mirrors can be used is where an advisor might say to them, look, it's 6 times profit, a multiple of 6. What they don't say, and they don't clarify, is that includes all the assets that business owns. So what the seller, who is usually fairly naive in this, because most business owners have never sold before, assumes that when they sell the business, they'll get 6 times profit and they'll get the balance sheet value. So sometimes it's not what the advisor who's pitching has said, it's sometimes what they haven't said, and they've let the imagination continue with the potential client.
Well, I'd say from being obviously sat the other side of the table, in your head, you can't believe this is happening. Like, so I remember we were offered 7 million for our business on the Friday.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel it was enough. But I tell you what, the little boy inside me was absolutely doing backflips. He's trying to remain calm. And I couldn't tell you what they said for the next 10, 15 minutes. Like, no idea. Because in my head, I'm already booking holidays. I'm already thinking, this is what I'm going to be doing. But still trying to play it cool. And then we obviously went back and said it needed to be more than that. And they did up it. So I can imagine if you're sat that side of the table and they're saying, we can get 13 times, that is the only thing you want to hear. And because you want to hear that thing, that is the bit that you're going to hold on for. So any of the sort of caveats they put in place, and that's even if they do use caveats, I imagine a lot of them don't, but even if they do use caveats, you don't want to hear that. The first phone call you're making is to your wife, your mate, your brother, your family to say, I can't believe it, it's been valued at 13x, 10x, 30x.
And of course, 13 times what?
Yeah.
So again, where there's lack of information, imagination takes over. And is it 13 times gross profit? Sometimes the person being pitched to hears that, gross profit.
Yeah.
Sometimes they hear operating profit. If it's EBITDA, what about adjustments? Because there's going to be replacement costs for the outgoing shareholders. So when someone starts talking multiples, it can be very misleading. I've always said that when you receive money for your business, you receive it in pound notes.
Yeah.
Not in multiples.
That's true.
So actually, the valuation of the business starts with a pound sign, not with a multiple, because that just allows very clever people with a calculator to try and wriggle out of the valuation that they've been given. And one of the common wordings that's used by a broker or an advisor that's trying to over-egg the pudding is your business could be worth.
Yeah.
Well, the active word is could.
Yeah.
What's more, the better phraseology, what is it likely to be worth? And it's usually a range. Good advisors will tend to give a range depending on, and then they'll give the qualifiers that affect price in that particular situation. And as I said, that's why I'm now on this quest as a mystery shopper effectively. I haven't got a name for it, but I'm riding shotgun really with someone who's looking to sell their business. I'm happy with anyone listening to this. If you want me to join a Zoom call, and when life gets back to a relative normal, to go in a meeting room, happy to sit with you, happy to listen to what's being said, and also give my view as to what I think your business is probably worth on an open market, given my 20 years experience and several hundred deals under my belt.